It's Reefer Madness, the podcast with Trevor and Kirk.
Hey, it's Kirk here. We have something special for you. We have a long conversation with Macky from High on Homegrown. You can go back to episode 60 and meet Macky there. We called him a couple months ago, and this is a conversation with Macky. What was it? It was the pandemic.
Yeah, it was 2020. I'm sure you was one of our early episodes, I know, within the first 10 maybe. I can't remember. It's been so long.
We're so old, the archives aren't even on the webpage anymore.
Yeah, loads of stuff got taken down periodically as we've moved on. We've just been making so many podcasts. We've got over 1 million downloads now.
Yeah, you guys. Yeah, very impressive. I was on your webpage. Very, very impressive what you guys have accomplished.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it's been fun along the way. As long as you've enjoyed it, it's not seemed too much like work, you know?
Yeah. Well,
But how about you guys?
How big's your staff? Like, are you doing this yourself? Are you?
Oh, yeah, I am staff. You know?
Well, I don't know how you put out 3. You must be retired like I am.
No, just very lucky to only have to work about 10 hours a week. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I get plenty of free time when the wife allows me. But you know how it is when you've been doing it for a while. You kind of it's part of your day. It's part of your routine. So it doesn't really seem like too much of a task anymore, you know? So how's things with you guys? How's your podcast doing?
It's going. We have listeners. We're nowhere near 1 million downloads yet. We think we have a small dedicated audience, but yeah, that's one of our bugaboos is getting a bigger one.
Well, yeah, you specifically about medical cannabis as well, right?
Mostly, just because we're a pharmacist and a nurse. But you know, we've had everything from Kirk was interviewing a traveling band to Kirk also got one of his musical idols on before he passed away.
Oh, right. Who was that?
Kirk.
Well, that was David Crosby, but we had him on before we talked to you guys.
Nice.
We were bragging about David Crosby before that. But we sort of, our moniker is Reefer Madness, obviously, but Reefer Madness because we go after the stigma, and Reefer Medicine and Reefer Mellow. So we go after all that, right? We talk about the rec market, but all of our episodes put it back to clinical practice. I do in the sense of how I try to, when I interview somebody, how do I put it to clinical practice?
Mm-hmm. So is it just you who does the interviews, or both of you guys are there?
We both do interviews. It'll usually be one of us doing the interview, and then the two of us will start doing an intro and an outro. We've done a few different formats, but 80-90% of it is one or the other of us doing an interview, and then the two of us are doing an intro and an extra.
Cool. So you've been doing it for longer than
8 years.
We have, right? 8 years now. That's a lot of interviews. How often do you do interviews?
We're getting about two up a month because I'm still working full time, and Kirk calls himself retired, but he's got many things on his plate. So if we get two interviews a month up, we're considering ourselves lucky.
Oh, that's good. It's good. It's just good to be consistent. And it's fun to interview people. You get to speak to so many different kinds of people and learn lots of different things.
Oh, absolutely. If it wasn't for the podcast, why would I have an excuse to email or drop a message to someone and say, hey, do you want to chat? Because otherwise I'd just be weird. Just a weirdo from Canada.
Well, it really opens doors. I mean, I just got back from Morocco and Spain. And I've got 6 episodes from being in Morocco and Spain. You, as you probably do, I get Normal magazine pushed to me in my email.
Yeah.
And I look for lots of interviews through Normal. We just got a response. I don't know, Trevor, did you see the email from Dr. Robinson from Israel?
No, I just saw your message saying this looks exciting. Let's get 2 episodes out of them. So I'll take your word for it.
So we've got an orthopedic surgeon out of Israel that has studies out how cannabis helps with diabetes, and he's an orthopedic surgeon. So he's got a whole slew of papers on cannabis and pain. So, I want to learn about cannabis and how it works with pain. So I call a guy in Israel and say, hey, talk to us on the podcast.
Not that it isn't cool. Cannabis and Pain is cool, but I hope it's a good interview on diabetes, because we haven't really got a good diabetes one yet.
Yeah. But you guys also do. You guys, by interviewing people, I like your news. You put out three a week. You have a news section, an interview section, and then a how to grow section, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and I learned how to grow from some of your episodes because I grow now. And but I also learned today. I was looking at some of your thing, and I learned today that edible cannabis is not all the 100% consumed by your GI. 50% of it goes into your feces, and dogs can eat human feces. And
whoa,
that was on your podcast, man.
Yeah, it's on one of our episodes where the dogs were getting poisoned by cannabis.
Yeah, by eating human
the festival
shit.
goers. Yeah. I remember. Yeah, I remember that. That was a strange. That was some good shit, as they say.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, Kirk and I both being dog owners, as gross as it sounds, dogs. They want to eat everything. So the fact that they've eaten someone's poop, unfortunately, doesn't surprise me even a little bit.
But I have Labradors, so that's even worse than a dog, you know.
Well,
they just eat everything. Yeah, oh, sweet. They're great dogs, aren't they? They're great dogs. I love them.
But he can find food on a sidewalk that's been swept. My dog. But Trevor, this story they put on, I don't know if you heard it, but it 50% of the cannabis is metabolized. The other 50% comes out. The cannabinoids come out in the feces. And we know that THC harms dogs because I had a personal experience with my dog getting into one of my cookies, which is a hilarious story. But I want to get this story as a medical story. I got to find an expert on human feces.
No,
that doesn't surprise me because we, like you said, we know how the big difference between we inhale it and we ingest it, how it goes through the body. So we understand a bit of that. But no, But the part that's surprising and cool is we know it goes to the liver and, eventually everything gets dumped into the feces. But I'm surprised how much sort of, we'll call it active stuff would be left over. The fact is there, maybe not so much, but so much. Yeah, that's cool. Gross, but cool. We need to know more about that.
I think I said as well on that show, like, would you try it out? Would you try it out and smoke it, sprinkle it in? Bit of hash? No.
No, honestly, no, not me, but
no, I wouldn't. No. Well, somebody's got to be desperate for it one day, Need a joint so bad.
Yeah, back in the 90s, friends of mine who were growing would give me their old fan leaves and sugar leaves. So what I would do is I'd take those sugar leaves, and I experimented once, and I infused them into mead. I keep bees. I used to keep bees, and I make mead. So I infused it in some mead, but this was the 90s now. So I just dumped a whole bunch of cannabis into the mead. Now, with 30 years of cannabis knowledge, basically what I did is, drew out the chlorophyll and possibly some acid forms of the cannabinoids, because the meads were about 15% alcohol and aged for 9 months. So there was some absorption happening. But I can tell you that when I brought that mead out and took it to a house party in Vancouver 3 decades ago, the morning when everyone woke up, there was a very fresh smell as people entered the bathroom and came out. And it was a green, fresh odor coming from the bathroom. So this was non-decarboxylated cannabis product that was in a mead. So I'm sure there was some cannabis material in those remains. So when I was thinking about this dog, I was flashing back to that party in Vancouver many years ago.
Well, I think you guys were the first place that I heard about carbon filters. So I'm not a grower, Kirk's the grower, but cannabis smells. Whether you're smoking it, whether you're growing it, it smells. It's funny. My wife now goes for coffee. She's the 50-something-year-old young kid in this coffee clutch. And a long roundabout way, a lady in her 80s was given a cannabis plant by a friend of a friend. Anyway, it's growing in the backyard. And that was all they were talking about, was the fact they can just go in the backyard and smell it as soon as they get nearby. But you guys were talking about the having, especially if you're growing in an apartment, because that comes up a lot around here is, yes, it's now legal to grow even in Manitoba. That just happened within the last 12 months. But across Canada, more or less, it's been legal to grow 4 plants on your own since 2018-ish. But if you're in a apartment, condo, smaller area, if you grow cannabis, there's a smell, and there's a big push about whether or not a condo board is going to let you grow because they're afraid of resale value. So the fact that you could put a carbon filter on your grow tent was a bit of a revelation for me.
Yeah, it's definitely important. And even like you said, even if you're growing it legally, it's still good to have a carbon filter because you don't want other people smelling it. And it can be an offensive smell. Not offensive in like, a very bad way, but some people do find it offensive. So you have to cover that smell, man, just out of benefit for everybody else. And it's so pungent. It's so fucking pungent, man.
Yeah. Well, another silly story. Kirk went away on one of his many vacations. He's semi-retired, and I was checking in on his plants. This is a few years ago when I still had kids in hockey, so I don't even think I touched the plant. I think I went to his little tent thing, looked, everything seemed to be fine. I checked his water level, whatever, closed it up, went back home, and we're supposed to be driving a bunch of kids off to a hockey tournament, including 3 kids whose parents we didn't know all that well. And we got into the car to go pick them up, and Dora said, "No, you're going home." So, "What do you mean? You stink like pot." I hadn't touched them. I just opened his little enclosure. So went home, had a shower, picked up the kids we didn't know, so it have me not smell like pot on the way to go off to the hockey tournament.
Yeah,
there's a smell.
That smell travels. Mm-hmm.
It does.
Yeah, so how's growing going for you, Kirk? How new are you to it?
How new am I to it? I think I've had probably about 7 crops. So 3.5, 4 years.
Yeah, some experience then.
Yeah, well, I'm learning, right? I like the whole carbon filter. I have my house. It's a large house, and from perspective of what I know about Britain, and detached. I have a basement, so way in the back, I have this 5x5 tent, 6x6 tent.
Nice.
And but I have a natural flow of air that goes right out into the backyard. When I'm home, I can put the roof fan on. I have a fan that pushes it out and into the duct, but it doesn't all get out there, right? So yeah, the house, when the flowers are in flower, when the flowers are going, the house can be pretty pungent. But how I'm doing, I've made the errors of stressing the plant. So I've had my flowers go to seed by stress, which has actually turned out to be kind of interesting because I got out the old Beatles White Album, nice. Once it was cured, and cleaned it up, and I use a lot of those seeds now. And so I'm basically growing my own AK-47 from stress seeds. And then I had a friend of mine who we interviewed on our podcast, who gave me a bunch of his genetics about 7 years ago. And I have those in my fridge in a dark space. So I've been using his genetics. So I usually grow 2 or 3 AK-47s, and then I grow some of his genetics, and I cure it. But I've got, I think, about 8 jars in my cold room of various things. But I'll tell you something, Macky. I had a really cool thing happen. One of my biggest learnings in May, and of course, we're in Canada, right? So our growing season's May to September, possibly October, depending on frost, right? Mm-hmm. So I had to put in the seeds early because I had to dash off to Alberta. I had to do some traveling, which is 11 hours away from here, to go to my mother-in-law's funeral. A different story. But I wanted to get some outdoor stuff going. So I got some bananas, overripe bananas. I chopped them up. I put a seed in each of them and buried them in my backyard and drove to Alberta. And the reason I did that because I wanted the potassium and the nitrogen that's in the overripe banana, and I wanted it to stay a little moist. And I just, what the hell, just off I go because I didn't have the time to sprout them, right? Mm-hmm. So I go to Alberta, come home, all 12 seeds are popped up. And that's cool. I let them vegetate around the end of August. So, vegetation outdoors. Around August, they started showing some flowers. I quickly got the males out of there. So I was down to about 6 or 7, and I was leaving for Spain, and all the plants hadn't fully showed themselves. So I had 3 that I knew were female. I just intuitively could see that they were female, and I pulled the rest. So out of 12 seeds, I got 3 plants and left them, just left them. Went to Morocco, went to Spain, came home after one small frost. Woke up the next morning in my house. I had all the fan leaves were frozen off. The flowers were hard, 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 trichome shining in the sun. A couple flowers were burnt by the frost, but I harvested from 3 plants. I was pleased. I got 5.5 ounces off 3 plants.
Nice.
And yeah, I
and
was
you had
happy.
didn't have to do anything. You just
I
put them
didn't
in the
do a
ground.
damn thing,
Wow.
man. What I learned from this experiment is leave them alone. You know?
That's right. You just if you can just let nature do its thing, then it will do its thing.
Yeah. So now what I'm doing is I'm learning how to make salves and lotions.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's a good thing to. Lots of people enjoying the salves, from what I've seen. It's good for arthritis pain and things like that.
Well, I think so too. I blew out both my shoulders a few years ago, and I just don't want to take ibuprofen every day. I just don't want to take Tylenol. So, I started experimenting with lotions, and I got to tell you, it worked really well. And name dropping Peter Vermeil, I told you about him off air, that he's a breeder grower from the Netherlands. You should be talking to. But I used his stuff, and he uses full plant spectrum extract in the acid form. And I've been using his stuff, and to be honest with you, honest to God, I forget that I have any pain at all. I just simply forget that my shoulders hurt. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. So I'm trying to see. Go ahead. We haven't talked that much about you, man.
Oh, we don't need to talk about me. Everybody knows about me by now. My listeners know. I know it's going out to you guys. I don't really have much to say. I just enjoyed the conversation.
Well, you're still in Britain.
Yeah, unfortunately, but not unfortunately. Yeah. I do love it here, but I'm sure you see on the news that we're having some trouble nowadays.
Yeah,
things are not good.
North America is not we have an annoying neighbor to the south who's causing a little bit of trouble here too. So
that's right. The world's in a bit of turmoil, but it's not so bad. It's still good.
So labor. What's happening in Britain with cannabis laws? What's happening with your medical cannabis program?
Oh gosh, not much. I'm sure you're aware that we legalized for medicinal use in 2018, in November 2018. It's just turned 7 years last week. And nothing's really happened. There's like 6 people. We have a socialized healthcare system like you guys do, the NHS. I'm sure you're aware of all of this.
Yep.
But you can't get cannabis medicines on the NHS very easily. Even after 7 years, I think there's 7 people. So we've had 1 person a year get cannabis on the NHS. You have to go through these private clinics instead, which is strange because we don't buy our medicines in that way in the UK, but cannabis is the exception. So you have to get a consultation with a clinic, and that costs about £50. And then after the consultation, if your criteria fits, which in most cases it will, they don't want to turn away a customer, do they? No. So they'll send you cannabis in the post, and it's a decent quality. It's legal, so you don't have to go out onto the streets of the legacy market and deal with potential criminals to get your cannabis medicine if you need to. There is a legitimate place you can get it.
I'm sorry, Macky. Sorry? You said only 7 people have accessed this. I missed something.
Oh no, that's on the NHS.
Oh, okay.
So they're getting it at a different price because the NHS is paying for that. They're getting like cannabis oils and things like that. But everybody else, and it's about 25,000 people now. All of those guys will be paying an exorbitant fee from the pharmaceutical companies that are in control of it. It's quite
really?
bad. Yeah, because people can't afford that kind of stuff. We pay a shitload of national insurance to pay for the NHS and the medical system that we have. And as a result, people don't have a lot of expendable cash nowadays, especially in this economical climate. So having an extra, say if you're smoking a quarter every week, which is a reasonable amount, that's just a gram a day, but that's going to be £50 a week, £200 a month. You know, people usually, if they're using it for medicine, they'll need at least twice as much as that. So you're looking £400 or £500 a month just on your cannabis medicine, which is just a crazy amount of money.
And that's through a private clinic?
Can you grow your own legally?
No, you still can't grow your own legally. No.
Okay.
Sorry, Kirk, you were saying?
No, my question was that through the private clinics that they're paying this fee, or is this through the...
Yeah.
So why aren't people going through the health program then? It's just too difficult?
They just don't allow it. The NHS doesn't give cannabis on prescription.
So how are people getting cannabis on prescription through the private clinics?
Because they're allowed to do it through the private clinics. It's like having a private doctor to go to.
So doctors are allowed to prescribe it?
No. NHS doctors and GPs, the general practitioners, they are not allowed to prescribe it. There has to be a certain doctor in the clinics, the cannabis clinics, and you go to them. And it's not like you can go to your doctor and the doctor will be like, "Oh, write your prescription for cannabis." You have to go to a completely different doctor, pay him a fee for your consultation, or him or her a fee for the consultation.
Okay.
And then you get your prescription from them. It's a completely different, separate company, if you like, from the NHS.
So where do you consume your cannabis then? Are there clubs that they can go to, or?
Well, there are a few clubs starting up now in different cities, but you have to be very careful with those. You're not allowed to smoke in the UK. You can't smoke indoors anywhere. So you're not allowed to smoke medical cannabis in any of these clubs. You can only vaporize it, and you have to have the prescription as well. To show, you show the club I have my medical prescription. I'm a legal cannabis user in the UK, and then you'll be able to vaporize your cannabis there. But there's still loads of problems. There's a huge percentage of the police force who are still not even aware about cannabis is legal for medical use. So there's patients out there treating themselves. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So, and it's a crazy number as well. I mean, it was 75%, but that was a while ago. I hope it's still not that high. I think they should have taught more police officers what the fucking rule is now. Because there's people who use cannabis for medical use here in the UK, legally jumped all through the necessary hoops, but they're still getting problems with the police. They'll come along, sometimes they'll take the medicine from them, confiscate it, and you have to do further, you have to prove that you are a legal user and all this, and that can take a while, so the medicine can go bad. If you don't treat cannabis properly, it goes too dry, or if it's too wet and it's left sealed for too long, it can go moldy. So all this can happen. But there's also rules like where you live with your landlord or the housing association who owns your house, the people you rent from, because you're not allowed to use cannabis. Here. You still have that problem in Canada?
Yeah. Wow. Yes. So short answer, yes. So Manitoba is one of the last places in Canada to allow you to grow your own four plants, and we don't know, but we suspect it was a big push from the provincial government. A lot of the MLAs, legislative assembly, the people in government provincially may or may not have actually also been landlords and were convinced that their housing things will go down. But we've actually talked to
You're being kind. You're being kind, Trevor. The conservative government at the time of legalization pretty much said cannabis grow-ops deteriorate and lower your value of your house and your neighborhood. So yes, that's our concern. And then the NDP came in. We have a new government in.
But we've heard similar complaints all across Canada, from famously liberal BC, where they've been growing bud forever. We've heard people complaining about it's difficult, in a condo/apartment setting, it was difficult for them to find a place where they were allowed to smoke. They were concerned about people smoking on their balconies because the neighbor might smell it. So it's not easy.
It's ridiculous, man, because at the end of the day, my neighbor smokes, and he will smoke in his back garden, and the smoke just blows into my living room. I'm supposed to be there enjoying this smell. I fucking hate the smell of cigarettes. I have to put up with it.
Yeah.
So, there's people out there who don't like the smell of cannabis, but if their neighbor wants to smoke it, surely it should be okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of offensive smells that drift into your house sometimes, and there's nothing you can do about it.
In Manitoba, you're not allowed to consume cannabis in any public place.
Wow.
Now, if you're a medicinal user, then you can consume cannabis in public places, but you have to be outdoors, and you have to be 8 meters away from a walled room. So you have to be out in the cold. So apartment dwellers, like I own my own home. I mean, out of respect, I consume my cannabis in my backyard because I don't want smoke in my house at all. But people that live in apartments or condos, the expectation is that they consume outside 8 meters away from their building. But what they don't know is that the landlord is obliged to provide a space if the occupants ask for it. But if nobody asks for it, the landlord says no consumption. So we
Yeah.
have a law where we have a legal substance and there's nowhere to consume a flower.
Crazy, isn't it? Who makes these laws? It's these lawmakers who do it for a
People.
fucking profession. They should
No,
know
but
better.
I've written about this. People make laws. So what is it about people that once they get into a bureaucracy that laws become silly? The people
Hmm.
aren't silly because people, I mean, no offense to anybody, but most provincial employees, a high percentage of provincial
Be
and federal,
careful.
yes, a high percentage of
Like,
provincial and federal employees are bright people. I mean,
allegedly.
they're they're
Yeah.
That's
highly
all you have to
educated
do.
and they're
Just add
bright.
allegedly now and then.
Well,
Sorry.
but then they get into this. No, I agree. But then they get in this bureaucracy and, power playing. And sometimes what comes out the other end is like playing telephone
Mm.
at a grade 11 party where people whisper in your ear. It's not what comes out the other end. Like our medical cannabis program right now is, I mean, our medical cannabis program has lineage back to about 1999, 2001, about, depending on which Supreme Court case you want to talk about. So we've had over 20 years of medical cannabis managed federally. And my hypothesis is healthcare in Canada is a provincial jurisdiction. So you've got a cannabis program that's federal. So provincial systems can ignore it. So they have ignored it. But then, our Prime Minister, Baby Trudeau, came up with his cannabis legalization in 2018. So what's happened in the last 7 years is that Health Canada, the federal department that runs our medical program, Health Canada, they are slowly ignoring the program because now people are getting their medicine, quote unquote, in sarcastic terms, from rec shops, right? So people are going
Hmm.
to rec shops because, it's recreational legally in Canada now. So people are getting what they see as medicine from rec shops. Our bud tenders aren't allowed to talk about cannabis as medicine. And more people are interested, my age, the retired people are more and more interested in getting their cannabis as medicine. And Health Canada seems to just sort of now going, oh, well, now that cannabis can be getting from the dispensaries, the rec guys, maybe we don't need a medical program, and it's sort of
Mm.
like, so what happens now? So now another excuse for health professionals to ignore it. Thanks, Trevor, by the way, for that rant. I just listened to our last
Yeah,
episode.
we just finished doing a podcast where Kirk went on, but
I went on
a
a
little
rant.
different government thing that gives me a little bit of hope is municipalities have more power than I think they do. If they, if a local municipality said, this bar, this hall, this space, it would be okay if you consume cannabis in it, I think things would change quickly. And we have talked about this before, but just an interesting thing that came up, our pharmacy's having a Christmas party in early December, and the guy who was, getting all the permits and stuff for the hall got insurance, which is a good idea. And the insurance agent said, do you want insurance for alcohol? Alcohol, people consuming alcohol? Yeah. Do you want insurance for people consuming cannabis? And he looked at him. I don't think they can. And that's true. But even the insurance companies are, insurance companies just want to sell you insurance, but they see the next step where, if, this bar, this cannabis club. This hall was sort of designated by the municipality as somewhere where cannabis could be, you could license it for cannabis consumption. And I don't think it would take much to make that last, give us somewhere public to consume cannabis thing.
Mm-hmm. That's what a lot of places need now, is somewhere where people can consume and not have to be worried about it. We're just a long way away from that in the UK, with it still being illegal. And even the legal users get trouble from the police still. So another thing as well, because I advise people to, if you're in the UK, you've got to grow your own cannabis. You're not allowed to, but it doesn't make you a criminal. So just grow your own cannabis. It's better, it's safer. And then you get the prescription from the pharmaceutical companies, as you have to do. And when it comes, you got it in a little pot, and the pot will have a date on it, like this should be used before this time. And then you can just put your own bud in that. And then if you don't have to keep buying a ridiculous amount of expensive cannabis, then you can just use the tub and keep topping up. Police officer ain't going to check it and be like, hold on, this says bubblegum on it and it smells like blue cheese.
Yeah.
He ain't got no difference, Yeah. Maybe a big difference between the blue cheese and the bubblegum. Maybe that wasn't a good example.
Yeah, but
No, I like that a lot. Kirk,
Yes.
I'm going. How about some of our favorite guests that we've done? I'm going to throw out one that he was cool for many reasons. We had Dr. Joe Goldstrich a year or two ago, and he was cool that he was a U.S. doc. He did a lot of things. I think he started out as a surgeon and just kept changing. He's now in his 80s, I think. But he eventually, it seems like most of the docs we interviewed kind of sort of stumbled upon cannabis. And now he is, a hardcore advocate of why doesn't everybody on cancer use this? Because he wrote a whole book on it. That's why we interviewed him. And don't get me wrong, the book was interesting. The talk was interesting. It's episode 116 if you want to look at it. But he didn't love talking about this part. But the thing that made him the most interesting, he was literally in the room during the Kennedy assassination. He was like a young intern at that point, basically running x-rays back and forth and stuff. But during the Kennedy assassination in Dallas, he was in that hospital helping out with Kennedy, which just kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I wonder if you saw anything.
He really, really, really didn't want to talk about that part, and we said, "Okay, we'll be nice. We'll just talk about his cannabis stuff was interesting, but I really, really, really would have liked to ask a few more Kennedy-related questions."
Now, about that magic bullet, right?
Yeah.
But I suppose he's been asked questions so many times about it, he's bored of talking about it. Anytime to bring it up to somebody, I was in Dallas when Kennedy was shot. Like, oh wow, did you see anything? No.
But he was also in the movie, wasn't he? They did the documentary. He can be seen in the background.
Oh right,
yeah,
the JFK one.
But he would not talk to us about it.
Well, maybe he's in on it. Maybe he's the one who stashed the bullet.
Yeah, he might be the magic bullet guy.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
That's right. We just like to say crazy things sometimes, but if you say allegedly at the end of it, it makes it okay.
Makes it legal.
It's in the terms and conditions. I'm sure it is.
So I had a unique North American experience when I told Trevor this actually, and on the way back from Morocco, actually way back from Spain, I was filling out my declaration. Custom declaration. And, you look on the webpage and you're not allowed to bring cannabis, right? You can't travel across borders with cannabis. Now, you guys in Europe with your borders the way they are, traveling between countries with cannabis, I don't think you guys get pulled over or stopped anymore, right?
Oh, yeah. Because there's only a couple of countries in Europe that have actually legalized cannabis, Germany being one of those, Spain. So I don't think you could go from Spain into France with cannabis.
But nobody's going to stop you. Like, you have open borders.
No, well, yeah, I suppose you do, but I think you still get, it's like stop checks, random checks. There could be border force at any one of these borders at any time.
Well, but in North America, in Canada, we're basically told you must not cross borders with cannabis, right? You just must not. It's been that way since God, since I started consuming cannabis when I was 15. You just don't do it. Well, I'm in Spain interviewing Peter, and he gives me several vials of his medicine, and I'm looking at it, and it's full plant spectrum extract from, it's acid form. There's cannabinoids, but it's not by any means activated cannabinoids. So I had this whole backstory I was going to tell customs, because I was going to take it across borders, but I was very, very nervous about doing this. And I was almost, I'm doing carry-on, so maybe I should just leave it. But so I downloaded the app, and it allows you 72 hours before you fly into Canada. You fill out the app and you make your declaration. Have you been on a farm? Do you have more than $10,000? Are you bringing alcohol back? Are you, et cetera, et cetera. So as I'm going down the list, it says, are you bringing in cannabis?
They're asking me now.
They're asking the question. So I said yes. What's the worst case? They're asking me yes or no. Are you bringing in cannabis? I am bringing in cannabis. I am declaring my cannabis. I get into the Calgary airport and I go to the kiosk, and you have to enter your number in, and they spit out a piece of paper, you and Michelle, the date you left, what you claimed, etc. On the top it says cannabis claimed. The guy looks at me and goes, "You taking the cannabis for pain?" I said, "Yeah." And I was about to launch into, it being acid form, etc. And he goes, "Yeah, okay, tell you what, just you're supposed to go over there, but I'm just going to send you through because your plane's in an hour, right? Yeah, we have a connector. All right, just keep going." And
nice.
I was like, it was sort of it was so anticlimactic, right?
Mm-hmm. Got a whole speech ready,
I had the speech, I had the science, I was prepared to throw it away. I don't, but yeah. But I mean, it could have been a little bit of white privilege, maybe. I don't know, the old white
I was just going to say, my favorite part about that whole story is he was telling me this. He just got back from his trip, but we were actually in the middle of doing prep for another interview. So we had two guests on Zoom with us talking about what we might talk about with them. And they're just pissing themselves laughing at Kirk. And one of the guys happens to be a rec store owner, Sean, super nice guy, but Sean's black. Sean looks directly at us and goes, "Well, I think if it had been me, that might have gone a little different." So
yeah, maybe,
so yes,
maybe.
Old white guy might have its advantages every once in a while.
But I declared it, right? So I thought that was kind of cool. They're asking the question now. So some things are improving, maybe.
Yeah. Well, the stigma's definitely less over there then for the guy at the airport to just be like, "Yeah, cool, just go through over there." Yeah, so things are changing for you guys, which is good. Slowly, but I think we're getting there. Just taking time, isn't it?
So you guys with, 1 million downloads, you must be getting some local recognition. I mean, there must be some journalists.
No, man. Not going to fucking stay hidden in the UK.
Really?
There's no recognition. I don't even tell my mother.
Oh, no kidding. So, so can I ask a few things on the side then? Like you're doing 3 episodes a week, man. That's a lot of work. And you got a really cool webpage, though. It's not searchable, by the way. You can't search your webpage.
Mm-hmm.
Just letting you know.
Yeah. That's the restriction sometimes.
Yeah. But you're doing some really good stuff, man. So you're only working 10 hours a week. That's kind of cool. Where do I get that job?
Yeah. Well, it's you got to have the right contacts,
Yeah.
It's all about who you know, not what you know. That's
well, I really enjoyed it. I spent some time on your webpage today and your YouTube page, and a couple questions about your YouTube page I have for you here.
Cool.
Are you now doing mostly live streams with your news component?
Well, what we do, and this is what it makes it seem like it's a lot of work, but as I said, once it fits into your schedule, it's reasonably easy. So on Sunday evenings, we record the show, we record the news and the grow guides on the same show on a Sunday, a couple of hours on the Sunday evening. So we record both. And then on Monday morning, I'll edit the news podcast, just add the intro, add some sounds, listen through it, just to make sure there's nothing that needs to be taken out. Sometimes there is, sometimes the background noise that needs being removed, all that kind of stuff. So all I'm essentially doing is listening to the show, editing little bits, and then sending it out in the late afternoon, early evening. Only takes a couple of hours to get all that sorted. And a lot of the work is done on the Sunday as well. Like the thumbnail is made on the Sunday, and I use the thumbnail for the news that I've made on the Sunday for the episode on the Monday. And then I have an interview on a Tuesday and a Thursday. And that's not both days every week, sometimes none, it depends on how many interviews are in the backlog. And then same thing again, I'll just listen through it, add an intro, add an outro, listen through it, and then publish it. It doesn't really take much time anymore because I'm used to it. It used to take so much time.
Yeah.
It used to take like 3 hours for an hour's podcast anytime.
Well, I noticed that your YouTube is posted before your web pages are posted. So are those live streams as you guys are recording? Are you live streaming it?
Yeah.
That's risky. You can't edit live stream.
No, but it's authentic.
Yeah, no, I compliment you. And when we talked to you last, you had Chase, the Temple Grower, and you had Monkey. Are you still got those guys?
No, the panel's changed a few times over the years. Yeah, right now we have Margaret, who's Canadian. I don't know if you had Margaret on your show.
No,
she has a podcast called Bite Me, the show about edibles. So yeah, it'd be good to get her on the show. She's a great lady.
Absolutely,
Margaret is. Yeah, I'll let her know. I'll send her a message and tell her to get in touch. But Margaret, and then there's Billy Bonds as well, another guy from the UK who is a cancer sufferer. He uses cannabis to help treat him with his cancer. So he's a very interesting guy, to say the least. Yeah, we won't talk about Billy anymore. We like to troll a lot, so yeah, we have good times. And then there's John Colson as well, who's from the USA. He's in a legal state as well, so he's that's who we have on the show now. And I just do interviews on my own now because it's just difficult for people to find time and stuff. And I like the when I started to, because we used to always have somebody in with me, but sometimes it felt like I would wait for responses from people and from other panel members and things like that, and it just works so much smoother when it's just me on my own, and I can just chat shit for an hour without there even being a guest. I've done it many times, so it's I don't know, it works, man. It works, and I enjoy it. I enjoy all these different conversations I have with people.
Yeah, same here.
It seems like it's a lot of work, but sorry.
How do you find your guests?
Well, sometimes they reach out to me, which makes things incredibly easy. But the thing is, now it must be, I'm going to estimate at 180-ish interviews that we've done with lots of different guests. So finding new guests now is very difficult to find. Yeah. We've had everybody on the show. Most people you can think of in the world of cannabis has already been on the show, and many of them numerous times. So it's difficult to find new faces,
Well,
so that's been the biggest.
You've had some.
Let me know.
And if you go to our webpage, you can search the guests because we have them all listed as well. We've got 157 episodes up, and all the guests are individually listed. So
nice.
But I was just looking at some of your lists. I mean, I've been trying to get Tommy Chong invited himself on us early, and we didn't take him early because it just didn't match what we were working on at the time. Right. I'd like to get him back, but his people aren't getting back to me.
Yeah, he's not doing podcasts anymore.
Oh,
he started to make his own podcast a year or two ago.
Okay.
And as a result, he stopped going on everybody else's podcast, which is a shame because we had some good times with Tommy. He was a great guest.
Mm-hmm. You've had Ethan Russo? Have you had Ethan Russo from...
Yeah, we've had Ethan Russo on. Yeah, that was a while ago. We've had fucking so many people on. We're so lucky. Have you had Dr. Bonnie Goldstein on your show?
No, I've talked to her. I saw her at a couple conferences and have an informal chat, but no, we haven't had her on the podcast yet. She would be great, but she's also a little hard to pin down. She's a bit, not surprisingly, saving all the world's children. She's a little bit busy.
Yeah, incredible guest. Incredible. I can try and sort that one out for you as well. This is one of the things, doing it for so long and being in contact with so many people. I have a ridiculous amount of contacts. I can just reach out to all these, but I'm so lucky. I've got a black book consisting of everybody's names. I've got Jorge Cervantes' phone number in my WhatsApp, and I can just message him anytime. And that's fucking crazy.
Kirk, it is. And Kirk really enjoyed. We got him on once, and I think he, it ended up being another one of Kirk's sort of favorites. Going, I read him back when I was 14. I didn't know, So yeah, it was another thing off the bucket list to get him on.
I use his encyclopedia. I use his encyclopedia a lot.
Yeah, the purple one.
Yeah.
Great book.
Online.
Great book.
Yeah.
But the biggest one, I think, like the biggest fish that I caught, the one which was most difficult, took 18 months of emailing. Every month I would send him an email, but like, you ready yet? You ready yet? Can we do it now? Oh no, I'm busy. I'm on it. Like Graham Hancock. You know Graham Hancock?
No.
I don't.
Fingerprints of the Gods magician. He likes to talk about ancient. He had the Netflix documentary Ancient Apocalypse, and he's a
Okay.
cannabis consumer, so it got him on the show at one point. It was awesome. That was a really good guest. Difficult to get, but managed to do it after 18 months of consistency. You know.
Oh, what was the one? I'm just trying. I'm on my webpage Googling. I can't remember the name of what was the one we did on religion? That was one of my favorite episodes. That was really early. Um, and we listened to what was his name, Trevor? The double X, pot and
Oh,
religion.
he used to be a pastor who convinced people not to look at porn anymore, and then he moved on to cannabis instead.
Yeah,
And I'm not going to.
Greg Gross. It was back in season 3 for us. We call it the Pastor, Pot, and Profits. And Chris Bennett. Have you researched Chris Bennett?
That rings a bell. I think he might have been on the show.
Yeah, I think you may have had Chris Bennett. He goes back to the biblical times. Did Jesus actually die on the cross, or was he given cannabisum?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh,
So
okay.
he's written several like researchable. Like he went into the Gnostic scrolls and came up with the burning bush of Moses. Well, Moses was in the temple of tents, inhaling hashish incense. So when he stepped out of the
The
tent and saw a burning,
degenerate.
right? So when he stepped out of the tent and saw a burning bush, it may have been influenced by some hashish. And this is all documented, researchable from the original scrolls. So he's something to look into. Chris Bennett, he's on the west coast of Canada. And
Yeah.
what was his name? Porn pastor. That's what he was known as, the porn pastor. And now he calls his church the Christian churches. He calls himself the Christian cannabis. Christian cannabis is his new and I've been trying to get him on a follow-up, and he hasn't been interested. But he was a fun
Yeah.
guest. That goes back 3
Sometimes
years
it's
ago.
difficult, isn't it, to get them back.
Yeah, you get him hooked. I had Raphael before he passed, and
Oh, good guest. Yeah.
well, he would have been a great
Well,
guest, and he procrastinated with
that
us.
close.
I was very close to
Oof.
getting him, and he sent me to another colleague who got back to me and never followed up afterwards. That probably because Raphael died a couple months later. But the guest I really, 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 really want is Neil Young, our Canadian American transplant down there. But Neil's been a big part of my cannabis life forever, and Neil's a huge cannabis guy. So I'd love to get him.
Just keep trying, man. No, if you don't
I
ask,
keep
you don't
banging
get.
away.
You know?
I keep banging away. I have his management company. I keep sending out an email I've written on my blog, AI says Neil Young should join us, and here are the reasons AI says so. So yeah, no, I'd like to get Neil Young. That would be kind of a fun one.
Yeah, it's a big one though. The bigger they
Yeah.
are, the harder they are to catch. Well, you say that, but Tommy Chong was so easy to get on the show.
Yeah.
And
Well,
he's
he
like
was-
a big star.
Yeah, I feel sorry that we pushed them away. But if we had gotten Tommy in those days, I would have asked him an awful lot of clinical type questions in regards to, him and Cheech really made cannabis fun in the 70s, but they also created that stoner culture that everyone tags cannabis at. So does Tommy own that? Does he realize that he may not have in the long run done cannabis a service?
Yeah, good point. Because that stoner stereotype does kind of span back to Cheech and Chong, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, man. I mean I can almost recite the entire Up in Smoke. I think I was 16 when that movie came out.
Damn. Yeah. What's that? It's Labrador, man.
It's the
Epic
best
movie.
shit. Yeah. No, I got it. I when you guys talked about the dog eating shit, I got it because I mean they're sitting on the medium rocking back and forth. I had to follow that dog around for a week.
Classics, man. What's going on with Trevor? Trevor, you're not growing at all? You're just still on
No,
YouTube?
I get some casts offs from Kirk, but one of the interesting grow things around here is we have an actual grow op in Dauphin, a full legal thing in our own backyard. Like, we're a relatively small city in a relatively small province, so the fact we have green craft cannabis in our own backyards, and we've got to go on a tour of it a couple times, has been really cool. So we're hoping they're the best for them, and it's really neat to go in there, all suited up in the white garb and over my non-existent hair, but their mother plant was the size of a small tree. I couldn't wrap my hand all the way around it. So that was just, this is a cannabis tree that I'm holding on to. And they were just sort of taking clippings off of that for their next run and the next run. But yeah, just the fact we have that in our own backyards now. But we complained about the government enough, but we'll do a little bit more. So this is a company that's doing well and trying to, bring more jobs to the area, yada, yada. And like everything else cannabis related, the government wants to tax the snot out of them, make everything just a little bit more difficult. Pile on a few more regulations, a little bit more tax. Because, one of the things all the provincial governments found when there's cannabis is they all thought they'd hit the taxation mother lode. And I forget the latest quote, but it's still well over 50% of what you spend on cannabis in the rec store doesn't go to the grower or the seller, the rec store employees. It goes straight back to the government. So it's still way too much tax, which in the end is bad for the grower, bad for the rec store, and bad for the consumer, making it more expensive.
Yeah. And people still go to the legacy market because it's cheaper.
Absolutely. Oh. And so the legacy market, we really early on, we had an interesting interview that he was right, it'll never fly, but we had an economist on. He told us about Pigouvian taxes that we hadn't heard of before, but Kirk and I still like pretending we know something, and said, well, that sounds like a Pigouvian tax. So the whole idea is if you did a negative tax on legal cannabis, i.e. gave them a subsidy, you could actually get rid of the legacy market altogether and have, safe, secure supply of cannabis through recreational stores, and it would come out cheaper than the legacy market. The legacy market would go away. Now, there'll be people who argue it shouldn't, but let's assume for the moment it says one of the stated goals when Health Canada came out with their act is to, have safe supply, keep it out of the hands of young people, get rid of the illegal market. And they could do that by literally giving them subsidies. But although that makes sense economically, there's no way that can possibly fly politically. So, of course, that never happened. It was a cool interview with the economist.
Yeah. So you guys just do interviews now then? You don't because we do the news and grow guides as well. It's just interviews for you guys?
Yeah. So short answer, yes. We're just doing interviews. We have Kirk does more. He does some more blogging and sort of commenting on things in the news. Actually, one of the things, a side project related that we're trying to do PSAs for our provincial government for basically safe cannabis consumption. So we've recorded a couple of our videos, six little videos. We're calling them the the 1 minute cannabis consumer, something like that. 60 second cannabis consumer. And we're trying to convince the provincial government to buy them and air them, and we'll see how that goes.
In Manitoba, we have a TV station, CTV, and they do a 60-second driver thing, public service announcement, 60-second drivers. So, what is a U-turn? What is turning left on a red, et cetera, et cetera. So we decided to do the 60-second cannabis consumer, and the Cannabis Act in Canada, you cannot promote cannabis. So it's very difficult for cannabis businesses to promote their business, right? Because you can't be seen promoting cannabis. So therefore you can't promote your cannabis business because you are promoting cannabis. So what we've done, we've got this model where we record inside a rec shop, Payson's Joint, locally owned rec shop. We're recording inside his shop. His logo's there. We're providing an educational piece on terpenes and how to read a cannabis label. And you're looking at Greencraft's cannabis label, and Greencraft is our neighbor down the street that's growing it locally. And so we have 6 episodes where we showcase Dauphin businesses as we provide education as nurse and as pharmacist, right? So we're meeting the intent of the Cannabis Act. So we're trying to maybe we get it into movie theaters. I don't know. That's something we're doing.
Yeah. Let's just keep at it, innit? Like I said, if you don't ask, you don't get. Just got to keep pushing it out there. If you don't push it out to anybody, nobody's going to do it. Nobody's going to buy it.
We were doing short little going to senior centers or active living centers locally and doing cannabis talks there. So we are trying to get out, but Trevor's a full-time employee in a very, very busy practice, and he also plays hockey. And
badly, fat old man beer league hockey.
And
isn't that just a standard thing for Canadians? Don't you all play hockey?
Well, I'm a West Coast kid. I'm a West Coast kid. I skate on my ankles. I have never played an ice hockey game. I played road hockey. I've never played ice hockey. But no, so I mean that's a limitation. I could go 1,000 miles an hour just because it's my style, and but I'm also trying to enjoy semi-retirement. But I do enjoy learning about cannabis. I mean, I'm in Spain and I'm knocking on doors saying, "Hey, I got this Canadian podcast and I'd like to talk to you about cannabis." Okay, so let's talk. So I may have visited 12 cannabis clubs and I was allowed into 3 of them. So probably more like 20. We went to a lot of cannabis clubs knocking on the doors saying, "Hey, I'm a Canadian podcaster. Can I talk to you about cannabis?"
You need still them
Macky,
crazy rules in Spain. Sorry, Trevor.
On your no, that's okay. I was just on your news section. So you just literally finding, latest blip on something on StratCan or whatever and saying, this week Germany legalized something, reading it out and making some comments on it, or what do you mean by you do a news segment? I'm just curious.
That's pretty much it. Well, I'd do a Google search. Well, the panel members bring their own news stories, so they find one which interests them. So, but for my method, I would just do a Google search for cannabis news, go to tools, and then change it to 1 week. The time, 1 week. So I'm just seeing all the recent news within the last week, nice and easy. And then you got to sift through all the ones that say cannabis bust. This guy was arrested for growing cannabis. Cannabis grow found in old school. And that's what you see constantly. And then every now and again, you'll come across something that piques your interest, like dogs being poisoned by cannabis by eating shit. Yeah. And then you just put it in the show notes. And then when we go live, we read through them and comment on them. That's about it, really.
I think we should.
That's interesting. Absolutely. I'm just thinking I've got a Google alert on. It's something that's like a cannabis scientific medical, something like that, and it does feed me story ideas. But like Kirk says, it seems like 80% of the things that come off this feed are sponsored by someone or a group looking to cast cannabis in a bad light,
But that's not just cannabis news, though. That's all news.
Yeah, true. So yes, they're definitely, after you saw these news things, that's not we are a little biased, but let's filter out everything about the cannabis is addictive and no one should be on it for the the interesting / positive spins on it. No, that's a good idea.
Get everything. I mean, like the ones where cannabis is addictive and all, we report on those. And they'll be like, look at this article full of shit. Look at and explain where it's full of shit. And it's just the old propaganda that we've been hearing since the Reefer Madness days. It's fucking crazy, man. the news is ridiculous when it comes to cannabis sometimes. Most of the time, you can find good stories, but sometimes you just find ridiculous news that you just have to bring in. Like we had a tragic case just a few months ago. I can't remember what news episode it was. We do it every week. But a girl was killed because her boyfriend stabbed her to death. And you look into it, and it's like this guy had a violent history. He was crazy. But because he had smoked cannabis that day, they blamed it on fucking cannabis-induced psychosis, and he went around and killed his fucking girlfriend in their car. And it's like, just because cannabis was there, you got to use that as an excuse. I've smoked loads of cannabis. I've never wanted to do something like that.
So have you ever?
You've yet to go on a killing rampage. I'm glad to hear.
But it's been thoughts, but after smoking, greened out. I had a whitey. Yeah, we call it having a whitey here in the UK because you go all pale. But yeah, when I was a kid, when I was like 16 years old, but not since then.
Oh, I experienced a green out. What is last year at some point? Usually my wife.
You and your dog.
No, me and my dog. I got to tell you the dog story too, but the dog story is hilarious. But it was what happened to me is that my wife wasn't home and I was getting bored, so I made some ginger cookies. And I love my gingerbread cookies, and so I made some gingerbread cookies for myself, and I made 14. And Michelle was telling me that the recipe calls for 40 cookies, Kirk, not 14. So I made these 14 cookies and ate one, and was going to take my dog for a walk. I'm in the backyard trying to put the leash on the dog, realizing that my eyes and hands aren't working together, and proceeded to find a pillow, and had the worst 6 hours of my entire life laughing because I knew what I had done. And I knew that I wasn't going to die. But honest to God, man, I had never been so miserable ever. It was like someone had spinned me around at 100 miles an hour and I proceeded to write a blog piece. And I called it "When You Find Yourself on the Green Out Express." And don't freak out. Green out, don't freak out. But the whole point is people are going into emergency departments because they're cannabis poisoning. And I believe it's the wrong terminology. And Trevor and I disagree with this. It's not a cannabis overdose. It's not a cannabis poisoning. Someone just took too much cannabis, because an overdose.
But that's an overdose, right?
No,
well, I suppose you would know better.
You're on Macky. You're on my side. That's exactly my definition.
In my
picking teams now. Let's go.
In my world, when someone overdoses, I'm looking for the antidote. Right? If I get an overdose into the emergency department, I'm thinking antidote. I'm thinking a life support and antidote. That's what an overdose is to me. I'm trying to change the terminology. I don't want health because people don't overdose on cannabis. They take,
but they
too
do
much.
if they have too much. That's what's the actual definition for overdose?
Well, from the pharmacist's point of view, literally more than was intended. If you overdose on a blood thinner, you bleed out your eyeballs. It doesn't.
But you're going to die.
Not necessarily. And I think this is to rehash an old argument. What I'm talking about is you took more than intended. I think when Kirk hears overdose, being a former emergency room nurse and he thinks overdose means you're going to die. And he resents the fact that no one's going to die if they take too much cannabis. Like when Kirk said, when we go do little spiels, and one of the first things we do in our public talks is, so the most likely way for you to die using too much cannabis is if a bale of cannabis fell on you. And that's, we start from there. So, but yes, Kirk resents the whole overdose implying that you're going to die.
I want to change the terminology, especially in the cannabis industry. It's not an overdose, and the medical field has no business talking about cannabis overdoses because it scares the public needlessly. It's needless.
Yeah. So, but there is an antidote as well, right? If you're having a bit too much, you need a nice sugary drink to boost up blood sugar, and then
or a hot shower,
the high will come down.
Shower or capsaicin tablet, certainly, or take a CBD pill. because you're not overdosing on cannabis. You're not overdosing on cannabis. You've taken an excessive amount of THC, is what's happened, right?
So what would you call it instead of an overdose?
You've taken an excessive amount of THC.
That doesn't roll off the tongue like overdose.
No,
overdose
not at all.
3 syllables. Overdose. Yeah, 3 syllables.
You guys, you're not helping.
You need to market your term better, Kirk.
Well, it's just, it's a. I'm watching a new television show called The Pit, and the very first episode has this kid coming in with a cannabis overdose, and I'm going, fuck. So let's scare everybody about cannabis overdoses on children, right? I'm trying to get people to, and obviously you're not helping me. I'm trying to change the vernacular.
No, we're not.
Well, we are helping you. We are the devil's advocate, so you can't steel man your arguments. That's what it is.
You can't overdose on CBD, right? So
no, but it's no detrimental effect, right? Because I would consider, in my definition of overdose, it would be to take too much of something to the extent where there's a detrimental effect, whether that's on consciousness or, just being slightly inebriated or something, an undesired effect because you overdosed on it. Like with psilocybin mushrooms, you can take too much of that. That would be
you can't die
an
from
overdose. It. No, but you'd be tripping balls for days if you have a few too many mushrooms.
Yeah,
maybe not days.
You're not dying from it, and you don't require medical intervention.
That would be a toxic dose rather than overdosing, right?
It's not even toxic because it doesn't harm the body.
If you die from it,
from magic mushrooms, no. My understanding.
No, but anything.
Well, if you step out in front of a truck, you can die. If you decide to fly off a building, you can die. But
it's overdosed on truck contact.
You can't. But you can't die on. You cannot take too much cannabis and die because there's nowhere for your body. I mean, while stoned, you can be stupid, but there's nothing in the body like opiates. It actually stops you breathing. Opiates will just stop you from breathing. And because you stop breathing, your heart will eventually stop too, because your heart they work together. So you die. So you can overdose on opiates, but cannabis, you've just had a very bad day. You're going to have a very, very bad day. So
and I hate to beat at this dead horse, but it's also
you're saving me time, Macky. I appreciate it.
Is this the criteria then for you to consider it to be an overdose? Then somebody has to die on it.
Yes, for me in my world, if you have overdosed on something, I'm looking at ABCs and antidote when they use that kind of terminology. So, and then I say, what have you overdosed on? Well, ibuprofen. Well, okay, you can't really die from ibuprofen. You can hurt your kidneys, but
and then your liver's going to pack up
we have beat that one to death. But anyways, if you want to read my blog, it actually explains it much better.
No, you've explained it fine. This is a good thing, right? When you do these live streams on YouTube, we get like between 60 and 80 viewers live on the show, and we can put a poll up. And right now, if we was live on the main show, we had these, I'd be like, right, is Kirk wrong about overdose? Yes or no? And I'd love to see the results.
Yes, we would too.
It won't be the first or last time I've been alone at the microphone.
That's the way it goes sometimes, but it's always good to have these discussions. I like having fun discussions like that. But I think an overdose doesn't have to kill you. Like if you took too much of a pill and it made you blind, is that an overdose? Because you didn't die, but you had the extreme detrimental effects.
Yes, because your eyes and your digits and your genitalia are very, very important parts of your body. So if you come into my emergency department with eye, genitals, hands, or toes, this is an emergency. It's a red immediately just because of that. So yes, I would say you've overdosed on a medication that has harmed your eyes. It's like overdosing yourself on power.
I like that you immediately went to genitalia. I've got to throw that.
But he's right.
He's right. Digits first.
Digits first. It was not in order of importance.
No, there's just algorithms. Hey, there's my brain works on algorithms. So.
So what's your growing method, Kirk? How do you grow in hydroponics? Live in soil? What do you do?
I grow in living soil, actually, to the detriment of one of my fellas. I use a peat moss, and I have bottom waters, and I put vermiculite in it. But this next batch, what I have out there is that I've been using that soil outside, and I brought some soil inside. So my next batch will be live soil. Right now, I've got some sticky stuff in the tent to gather some of the bugs that are flying around. So I'm catching those
Okay.
right now. And I put a couple beetles in there to go eat the flies as well. They're just little fruit flies, I think. And I've
Mm,
got the seeds right now on top of my refrigerator in some tissue paper, and they're to get them to sprout. And I'll probably putting them in soil probably on Thursday, I think. I'm hoping.
nice, nice. It's a
Yeah,
great way to grow. Yeah, we've got some
yeah.
real good interviews. You should definitely check out the interviews with Marco.
Okay.
We've had him on the show a couple of times. He's a grand champion grower. He's won awards for producing extremely high quality cannabis with lots of terpenes,
And where's he
and he
from?
grows somewhere in the USA. I can't
Okay.
remember the state. I don't know. No, I wouldn't even make a guess. But yeah, but like expert grower knows his shit, man. And he makes all his own nutrients for his plants. He's built his own soil. He grows it in horizontal soil. So there's like stones, then sand, then soil, and then an organic layer that breaks down and feeds the plants.
Oh
Genius way
man.
of growing. And he does Korean natural farming methods as well. So makes his own nutrients out of old plant matter and compost teas,
That's a
lactobacillic
that
acid.
just seems like a
Crazy.
lot of work, man. That just seems like a lot of
Well,
work.
that's what I say to him,
Yeah.
but I think collectively it's the same amount of work of what hydroponics would be. It's just you're doing it at different times.
Well,
It,
yeah.
it all
I have
balances out.
my mentor lives up the street from me. I call him Sensei. And he's been growing.
Sensei.
Well, but he's
Yeah.
also the classic cannabis guy from the 70s who's still, even though cannabis is legal, he's so paranoid, and I
Mm,
guess, I don't live in your world where paranoia is actually life-saving. But so he grows hydroponics, and I've tried to get him to interview with me, but he's not interested. But he keeps wanting me to get into hydroponics, and I don't want to work that hard. I've been brewing my own booze for, wine, beer, mead, and you make it. There's some intensity, and then you let it sit in under the
mm,
stairs for 9 months, right?
mm,
So I want to be able to go into my plants. I go once they're in the vegetative state, and they're surviving. I'll go in every day. I'll talk to them. I'll trim them. I'll water from the bottom. I'm using bottom waters. So, and the idea is to get the roots to grow downwards.
yeah, the sit pots. Yeah.
Yeah. And but I don't want to be measuring nitrogen and potassiums and calciums and measuring stuff and pouring in, 5 milliliters of that. I don't want to do that. I'm
Mm,
retired. I just want to get some water. I'll put some budding nutrients in there. And when I change the light switch and they're starting to throw flowers, I love trying to identify flowers. Those males show early, and I'm starting to get to know them. Um, and then I just want to be able to water them that way. And like Trevor said, sometimes I travel a lot. So, here I am in the middle of a
mm,
grow, and I'm going to go take my van and go caravanning off in the West Coast. And God, the girls are in flower. You know,
mm.
gee whiz. So
That's it.
I don't
Yeah.
want to say, Trevor, you got to go spend an hour with my plants, you know?
Mhm. But we like to say on this show because we like to get classic sayings and mix them up so they barely make any sense. And what we say is there's many ways to go swimming with a cat. All right. So you just got to find out which method works best for you and just roll with that. You know?
Yeah. But I'll tell you one thing. I think years ago I went out, and one of our guests was from a laboratory. So I sent my flower out and got analyzed. And I think it came back this seeds that I'm still growing from the stress plant. And I think it's maybe 21% THC and maybe a little bit, 4 or 5% CBD. And to be honest with you, I don't know enough about it. These stress seeds, I didn't even know if they were going to germinate or not. And
Mhm.
if they germinated, and so I'm getting them, but I haven't measured the cannabinoids in these plants for
Yeah. Yeah.
forever,
Mhm.
you know. But when I do get around to hanging out with, being at a safety meeting with a bunch of the friends, and some of the sons, some of the younger generation comes in with their commercially bought cannabis, I know it lays me out. I have to be
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
careful. I can smoke a reefer of mine and have a really nice glow on. I just feel so wonderful, so mellow, no pain. I'm happy. They bring one of these commercial things and it's gone. I just,
Yeah.
Jesus, what the hell happened?
Ma-
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Mackey's, yeah, are infused reefers, infused cannabis a thing in Britain? Because Kirk and I both talked about this. People younger than us like their 20, 30, 40, 50, 60% THC, which, you can grow to a certain, and then they add to it. Like, I was on a fishing trip and, someone gave me one of these and, I could barely hold on to my fishing rod for the rest of the day. It wasn't fun. Didn't enjoy that at all. And like Kirk was saying, his 20% THC that he grows is fun. The things that the kids these days are smoking not fun, not enjoyable.
Yeah.
Like, is that
Yeah.
a thing in Britain or?
Yeah, definitely. But it's also you get used to your own shit. You smoke that stuff that you bought off the street, and you first few times you're going to get really smashed because you're not used to that specific cannabinoid and terpene profile. But after a few days of smoking it, then it's going to kind of settle, and you get used to it. So it's not so mind blowing when you first smoke it. But it's definitely this. I quit smoking like 3 years ago, and I only vaporize cannabis now. I used to consume a ridiculous amount of cannabis, like a quarter a day, because when you're a home grower, you can just smoke as much as you like. There's nothing stopping us. You just used to smash a ridiculous amount and never be high. And I would smoke 3 joints before midday and not be fucking high. I'd just be chilling, just be like, yeah, that was a delicious spliff. Let's roll another one. But now, if I even just take 3 draws of a spliff or a joint, and I'd be fucked, man. Like way too strong for me. Way too strong. So you get used to that shit.
Are you vaporizing flour or?
Yeah. In a Mighty, Mighty from Stores and Bickle.
Yeah,
I have one of those. Delicious, incredible cannabis, and that's how I prefer to consume now. But you just get used to it. You get used to your own stuff, and you don't get high so much. And then your tolerance is different. These weeds out there now, with 25% minimum, you're looking 25, 28 average, and then I reckon they can get right up to 32 maybe. But then it starts to get a little less believable. Like, are you trying to tell me a third of this thing here is just THC? It's a bud. All that flour, and it doesn't make any sense.
It's not though, Macky. It's not. See, you don't have the recreational market. I once a year I go out and I do road trips and road stories, and I purposely go to rec shops and interview people at rec shops because I want to know what's happening in the rec marketplace. And what I was out on the West Coast, and I don't know if you caught what Trevor said, but infused pre-rolls. In Canada, of course, you buy your bud, but you can also buy pre-rolls. So what happens is that a lot of the flake gets rolled up and sold. But what the cannabis companies are doing now is that they'll be putting a little hash in there. They'll roll it in crystals. So you get
in keef,
in keef and all sorts of stuff. So you get this. I think one of them was 80% THC.
Wow,
something ridiculous. Yeah.
Like
now, Mac, you might be right. The label said 80% isn't really, but the point is, Kirk.
Yeah. Well, the point is like, holy Christ, it's a lot of THC.
Yeah, and that's crazy, isn't it?
But going back to the whole overindulgence opposed to overdose, because I'm not going to let that one go. But what we've also learned.
We're going back there again.
But what we've also learned is that most people that have psychological problems or insecurities with cannabis or anxieties with cannabis, it's coming from the THC. So if we're encouraging these people in rec shops to start consuming these high THCs, of course anxiety is going to go up. Of course, it's like a full spectrum homegrown flower grown in soil. I mean, I go into my jars and cured cannabis opposed to dried cannabis. I mean the cannabis we buy recreationally probably cured, but when you get it out of the container, it's dry, it breaks. You don't even need to put it through what do you call those things now? A grinder, right?
Mill.
Yeah. So my homegrown stuff, it's cured, and when you open that jar, and it's like, oh my God, look at that! It's a garden, and I have to grind it, and it's so moist, it's fluffy, right? But it's cured. It's just, and it tastes good. It's just, I like my stuff.
Homegrown's the best. It's crazy. Homegrown is the best. Even now, with all these professionals growing large amounts of cannabis, homegrown is still the best. The best cannabis you're going to consume is the stuff you make yourself at home.
Completely agree with you, man. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm proud of it. And like I said, now I've got this abundance of stuff that I grew outside that's
Mm-hmm.
just blowing my mind. It's just
You're gonna
blowing
make
my
some
mind.
hash then. If you've got
Well,
abundance, gonna get make
well,
some hash, bro.
I'll move into that. I'll move into that. But right now, I'm learning how to make salves. And what I did, I took an ounce. I took an ounce of homegrown flower, and I took two different varietals, mixed them together. I got some extra virgin olive oil because from my research, it's the best oil to actually draw out can't say the word.
Flavonoids,
Yeah, that's the word I'm
terpenes.
looking for. Take some out, and
Mm-hmm.
and then I mixed a little coconut oil, a little bit, but I had argan oil from Morocco, arnica oil from Morocco, and menthol from Morocco, and
Okay.
beeswax, local beeswax, and put it all together. And I'm now using it on my arm, and I smell like a cannabis garden.
Sweet. And that's
Yeah,
the thing, and obviously, I don't know about you guys because you're in that profession, but the majority of us ordinary folk, not saying you're ordinary, you know what I mean? We're very skeptical of big pharma. And when you see people treating
Yeah.
themselves with their own homegrown medicines, that's going to be a problem for big pharma. They lose out a lot of money when you're not getting your medicine from them. And it's one of the reasons why cannabis has been prohibited for so long. One
well,
of the many.
but it's also there's not a lot of medications that you're completely in control of as the patient.
Mm.
Right. And that's the thing about cannabis is that doctors aren't in control of it. All prescribers can say is, I'm going to prescribe you cannabis. I'm going to say you can take 10 grams a day that allows you to grow X amount of plants, and you decide how much you use. That's
Mm.
contrary to, I mean, I mean, I think Trevor's used to it now, but in the old days, you were quite uncomfortable with that. What do you mean people decide how to take their own meds?
Mm.
Well, I was, but to push back on that, though, the problem with that is a lot of the people we talk to anyway, and I don't think we're alone, is older people. So take your cutoff, 75 plus, 70 plus, want to try cannabis for their miscellaneous aches, pains, and ailments, and they don't want to, I've obviously generalizing, there's going to be some who want to, experiment on their own, but in general, they want to have, the doctor say, take this capsule or take this oil for your sore knee, and they don't want to figure it out on their own. And it's strangely, like Kirk said, a lot of the doctors we think are kind of abdicating the responsibility and just saying, well, just go down to the rec store and pick something out, which is so wrong in so many ways. Like the bud tender is legally not allowed to give them medical advice. The bud tender, of course, doesn't know about the 150 other problems that they have or the medications they're on. So I think there really is a spot for medical professionals / standardized cannabis / not having people figuring it out on their own, because there's a good chunk of the population, the older chunk in particular, who really would like something closer to, we'll say, their traditional trip to the pharmacy, where I have a prescription from the doctor, I hand it to the pharmacist, they give me exactly what the doctor wanted, and I check back into the doctor in a month or two to see if it worked. That's what a good chunk of the population is looking for. And weirdly, in a legalized country like Canada, that doesn't happen very often.
Mm. Yeah, it's another thing with, like you say, with the patients finding the right dosage. It's hard to be consistent with cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
You can't always take 10 milligrams if you're smoking it, at least. If it was in a oil or some kind of extract, then it'd make it easier. You have to get it right, don't you? Mm-hmm.
You do, and yeah, when we get a conference I went to a couple times, they held in Florida. I think this year they moved to Puerto Rico. That's not the important bit. So CanMed, interesting, lots of cool people there, but sort of along these lines, there was a definite split in the people who were there. The very pro pharmaceutical end, people from the pharmaceutical industry who really want to break cannabis down into its individual constituents and make $1 billion drug on it, and the whole plant people. And they didn't agree on very much, which is fair. But in my opinion, I think it's going to have to be something between the two of them. Like the pharmaceutical people, one of the reasons they want to break it down to its individual constituents is that's how things get licensed. That's just how it works, is you can't license a drug that has 150 different constituents like a cannabis plant does. But on the other hand, for the whole plant people, like you said, it's really hard to be consistent batch after batch of whole plant. And so, if you don't know the exact dose of what you're getting, it's hard to say, if I felt better or worse this month, was it my disease changed or the medication? So I don't know quite where that's going to end up, but I think there's got to be some sort of happy medium between the 100% pharmaceutical people and the 100% whole plant people, but I don't quite know where that's going to end up going.
Yeah, I think so too. A balance between the two. But
Well,
that's it. It's going to be hard to get there.
Even as a guy that, I'm aging and I am truly using cannabis medicinally for my joint pain. Even I am reluctant to believe it because when I broke 6 ribs a few years ago. Pretty much every rib that's attached, I broke them, and spent 6 weeks miserable sitting in an upright chair, sleeping in an upright chair. But I used cannabis for pain relief, it didn't always work. It helped me sleep, so I supplemented it with ibuprofen very cautiously. But I got through that, and associated injuries are that I blew out some tendons. Well, now I'm using lotions on that. I don't have any pain, so I'm reluctantly asking myself, well, am I just healing now? Because, the healing process, or is it the cannabis working? Even myself, I use it as medicine. I'm reluctant to believe if it's really working, but I can tell you that the stuff Peter gave me, unbelievable, just unbelievable. So it must be working, right? And then you start getting studies, and people are saying cannabis works, but do we have double-blind placebo studies? No, we don't. We just got people's words for it, right?
Yeah, it's just not right, is it? Need real studies, like double-blind everything to make sure that that it's working, but it's doing the job it says it does on the tin.
But yet, if you say anecdotally that I got no pain using cannabis, yeah, so what's working?
Yeah. We still need them proper studies, and hopefully they'll get done soon. If the USA changes down to their, brings it down to Schedule 1 rather than Schedule 3 rather than Schedule 1, isn't it? Because it's prohibited to even do experiments on cannabis in the USA. But there's still countries out there doing work.
Bonkers.
Israel's doing work, and Israel is coming up with some good cannabis.
Yeah, we think Israel is still kind of the world leader in research. Canada was doing some. Weirdly, as Kirk's pointed out several times, is sort of since legalization, even the cannabis research seems to have gone away in Canada, where there used to at least be some doing here, and now it just seems to have fallen off the map here too. So yes, like the rest of the world, we do look to Israel for what they're doing.
The first 5 years of legalization, recreational legalization in Canada, if you wanted to study cannabis as a substance of misuse, there was money available for you. If you wanted to study cannabis as medicine, the money didn't flow. My understanding now, slowly, the money is going towards cannabis medicine. But I think most Canadian cannabis experts believe we dropped the ball. We could have been so far ahead of the research, and we went into it thinking that cannabis is a substance of misuse. I was just saying to Trevor in our last episode, I did a quick scan of the professional colleges in Manitoba, and professional colleges of nurses, professional colleges of respiratory therapists, physiotherapists, all the medical fields. We have colleges we report to, and nursing and respiratory were the only ones that had policies, but the nurses one was cannabis as medicine. The respiratory one was cannabis as a misused substance being used by therapists. So the studies in Canada are now on. We're as a healthcare provider, I'm supposed to be looking at cannabis as a substance of misuse, not as medicine.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, there's always so much research to be done. I'm glad. I hope to be part of it one day. But I'm such
Macky,
a lightweight. I don't know.
this is a great conversation. I could speak for hours. I'm not sure about your timing, because there's so much more I want to talk about your project. One of the things, Trevor, I learned on the news was from these guys is that our carbon footprint when you light up a reefer, if you put a third of a gram of cannabis in your pre-roll, you are using as much carbon footprint as an electric car going 3 miles. I thought that was
crazy.
Stunning.
Yeah. How the fuck did he even come up with that? I don't know. It's just crazy. I think they just write things down sometimes. I think, oh, that sounds like it makes sense. Print it.
Yeah, print it. Yeah. Let's see if somebody perpetuates it.
Mm-hmm. But man, yeah, it's been a good conversation. I'm sure you guys have got other things to do, but I want to encourage you, if you can, you just get a news episode up and running. There's plenty of cannabis medicine news to find out there, or other things. As long as you enjoy making the show, people will enjoy listening to it. That's what I've found.
I completely agree.
That's a great idea.